Steph Curry was alone in the living room of his home in Atherton, California. He was still wearing the sweatshirt from the morning training session at the Chase Center. 4 days had passed since the elimination in the conference semifinals of the playoffs. 4 days of endless mental replays. 16 seasons in the NBA. 4 championships. 2 MVP awards. The record holder for three-point shots in history. He completely revolutionized the game of basketball, and yet that voice would not stop. He is good, but he is not Jordan. At 37 years old, Steph thought he would have already made peace with these comparisons. But no, they still hurt. They still robbed him of his sleep. They still made him question whether everything he had achieved was truly enough. He picked up his cell phone and scrolled through the sports news. More analyses about the elimination. More endless debates about historical rankings. More people saying that he would never reach Jordan's status, no matter what he did. The phone vibrated in his hand. Unknown number. Normally, he would ignore it. But something in that moment made him answer. Hello? The voice on the other side was unmistakable. Deep, measured, with that confidence that only decades of greatness build. Steph. It's Michael. Steph's heart raced. Michael Jordan. The Michael Jordan. Calling him directly. Michael. The voice came out weaker than he intended. I know you weren't expecting this call, Michael continued. Steve. Kerr gave me your number. He said that maybe it was the right time for us to talk. And he was right. There was something different in the tone. It was not the voice of the relentless competitor that the world knew. It was something softer, almost vulnerable. I need to talk to you, personally. It's important. Steph felt his throat tighten. In 16 years of professional career, Michael Jordan had never asked to speak with him personally. They had met at events, exchanged polite greetings, posed for photos. But this was different. When? Steph managed to ask. Thursday. Chicago. My house in Highland Park. The answer came firm, without hesitation. I know you have commitments, but Steph, this cannot wait. There was real urgency in those words. I will be there, Steph responded immediately. Good. A pause. And Steph, come alone. No assistants, no agents, no media. Just the two of us. There are things I need to tell you. Things I have never told anyone. Things I have kept for 22 years. The call ended. Steph sat still, motionless, the phone still in his hand. The silence of the house now seemed charged, electric, as if something monumental was about to happen. His memories began to return. He was 9 years old, sitting on the floor of the living room in Charlotte, North Carolina. His father, Del Curry, beside him on the sofa. On TV, Michael Jordan floated through the air, defying gravity. It was 1997, and Jordan was at his peak with the Chicago Bulls. Dad, how does he do that? Little Steph had asked, eyes glued to the screen. Del had smiled. Hard work, son, and pure passion. How many nights had Steph spent in the backyard shooting ball after ball, imagining being Michael Jordan in the decisive shot? How many times did he imitate that tongue sticking out, that intensity in the eyes? And now, that same man wanted to see him. Personally. Urgently. Why? That night, Steph could barely sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw flashes. Jordan holding trophies, Jordan being a legend. And then he saw himself, his own trophies, his own achievements, and that cruel voice. It's not enough. It will never be. The following morning, he called Isha. Michael Jordan wants to see you? Personally? The surprise in her voice was total. Are you nervous? Terrified, Steph admitted. It's like that 9-year-old boy in Charlotte is suddenly going to meet his real-life superhero. But this time it's not at an event. It's real, intimate. Did he say what he wants to talk about? No. He just said he has things he has never shared with anyone. Things he has kept for 22 years. There was a pause. Then Isha said, "Maybe he sees something in you that you still cannot see in yourself." Thursday arrived. Steph woke up at 5 in the morning, even though the flight was at noon. He trained out of habit. He put on simple clothes, jeans, blue polo shirt, discreet sneakers. At San Francisco Airport, he wore a cap and sunglasses, avoiding being recognized. During the 4-hour flight to Chicago, Steph looked out the window. He thought about all the times that Michael Jordan had been placed as the impossible standard. In every interview, asking if he thought he was better than Jordan. In every debate about who was the GOAT. But nobody asked, what is it like to carry this? What is it like to be constantly measured against a living myth? The plane landed in the late afternoon. Steph took a discreet car that Michael had sent. Respectful silence as they crossed Chicago toward the exclusive suburbs of Highland Park. When they passed through the security gates and entered the long driveway, Steph's heart accelerated. The mansion was imposing but welcoming, significant, like everything related to Michael Jordan. The car stopped. Steph got out with only a small backpack. The Chicago air was colder. Or maybe it was just the weight of the moment. The door opened before he reached the steps. And there he was, Michael Jordan, in the flesh. At 62 years old, still imposing, still with that dominant presence. He wore jeans and a black polo shirt, arms crossed relaxedly. But it was the eyes that captured all attention. Those eyes that had stared down thousands of opponents. And in those eyes, Steph saw something he never expected to see. Vulnerability. "Steph," Michael said, descending the steps with his hand extended. "Thank you for coming." They shook hands, firm, respectful. But there was something more. A silent connection. A mutual recognition of two men who understood the weight of greatness. "Come in," Michael said. "We have a lot to talk about." "And Steph, what I am going to show you today will change the way you see everything, including yourself." The door closed behind them, and the world outside ceased to exist. The interior of Michael Jordan's house was a sanctuary of living memories. Steph followed Michael down the wide hallway, trying to absorb everything without, seeming impressed. But how could he not be? On the walls there were photographs, not trophies demanding attention. Photos of intimate moments. Young Michael with his parents, Michael with his small children. Moments that the public camera never reached. That space was not built to impress visitors. It was built to remind Michael himself of who he was when nobody was watching. "Water?" Michael asked. "Please." Michael gestured to a comfortable room. It was not a formal room. It was lived space, real. Soft leather sofas, normal-sized TV, books about basketball scattered on the table. They sat down. Michael handed cold water to Steph and took bourbon for himself. He took a slow, thoughtful sip, choosing his words. "Do you know why I called you here?" Michael finally asked. Steph shook his head. "I have no idea." "I watched all your games last season," Michael said, letting the information hang. "All of them. From the first to the last. Including that Game 6 against Denver." Steph's chest tightened. The elimination game. The pain was still fresh. "And do you know what I saw?" Michael continued, leaning forward. "I saw a guy carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. I saw someone playing not to win, but to prove something, to silence voices, to reach a ghost. Steph felt his throat tighten. He looked at the glass of water in his hands. I know because... Michael paused, voice getting lower. Because I was that guy for 20 years. Steph raised his eyes. Michael was looking not at him, but through him, seeing his own past projected in the present. People think that being the best is about victories, Michael said, about trophies, records, headlines. And it is, to a certain point. But nobody tells you about the price, the sleepless nights, looking in the mirror and seeing someone you do not recognize. Winning everything and still feeling it is not enough. There was something breaking there. A barrier that Michael had kept raised for decades was beginning to crack. I had to be relentless, he continued. Treat teammates like enemies in practice. Choose championships instead of being present at birthdays, graduations, moments that never come back. And I won. My God, how I won. 6 rings, 5 MVPs, a legacy that, he laughed bitterly, apparently became a curse for everyone who came after. Steph felt something moving inside him. Michael, he began, but Michael raised his hand gently. Let me finish. Please. There was pleading. There. Do you know how many times I wanted to call players like you, LeBron, Kobe, when he was still alive? How many times I wanted to say, you do not need to be me. You do not need to carry this impossible burden. But I did not call. Pride would not let me. The image would not let me. The myth would not let me. He took another sip of bourbon, hand trembling slightly. But then I watched you this season, and I saw something different. I saw a guy trying to be the best, but also trying to be a good father, good husband, good human being. And do you know what I thought? What? Steph whispered. I thought, he is managing to do what I never could. He is balancing. He is redefining what it means to be great. And Michael's voice failed, felt envy. For the first time in decades, I felt envy of another player. Not for titles, not for skill, but because you have something I sacrificed. Balance, presence, humanity. The silence was dense, loaded with raw truth. I do not know what to say, Steph admitted, voice choked. You do not need to say anything yet, Michael responded, smiling. Genuine, vulnerable. Because I have something to show you. Something I have kept for 22 years. Something I recorded for whoever came after me and changed the game in the right way. Michael went to a cabinet and opened it, revealing video equipment. Modern laptop connected to TV, but beside it, box with old digitized tapes. In May 2003, he began, working with the cables. Right after I retired from the Wizards, I was at home, alone. I was 40 years old, thinking about everything I did, everything I was, and I realized something terrifying. He paused, looking at Steph. I realized that I had become a prison for the next generations. Impossible standard. Myth that crushes instead of inspiring. And I did not know how to fix it. How could I? I was Michael Jordan. Admitting vulnerability would destroy the image, or so I thought. The TV flickered. Blue screen, then black. So I did something I never told anyone. Not even my children. Not even my close friends. I recorded a message, video letter, for the next person who would revolutionize basketball. Not the next person who tried to copy me, but the next person who had the courage to be completely different, and still great. He pressed play. The screen came to life. Michael Jordan, from 22 years ago. At 40 years old, strong, but eyes already carrying the weight of an entire career. Sitting in a chair, alone in a simple room. No production, no script, just truth. The recorded voice of Michael filled the room with that slightly grainy quality of video from the 2000s. If you are watching this, it means that Mike had the courage to finally show it. It means that you are special, not in the way I was special, in your own unique way. Steph felt tears beginning to form. He blinked rapidly. My name will haunt you. The Michael on the screen continued. Every comparison, every debate, every person saying you are not enough because you are not me. I am sorry for that. I am sorry for having created a standard that became a curse. The present Michael was beside the TV, watching his younger version with an indecipherable expression. But I want to say something I have never said publicly, the video continued. Being the best cost me almost everything. My relationships, my peace, my ability to just exist without always proving something. If I could go back and give myself advice, it would be, do not be the best at any cost. Be the best while still being yourself. The voice in the video became softer, intimate. You will revolutionize the game. Maybe with shots they say are impossible. Maybe with leadership that does not require destroying teammates. Maybe just by being human. Completely, vulnerably human. Steph could not hold back anymore. A tear rolled down, then another. And when the comparisons come, when they say you are not me, smile. Because you do not need to be. You need to be the best version of you. And that, my friend, that is true greatness. The Michael on the screen leaned forward, looking directly at the camera. Do not copy me. Do not try to be me. Be who I did not have the courage to be. Be balanced. Be present. Be human. And if you can do that while still dominating the game, you will have done something much greater than I ever did. The screen went black. Absolute silence. Sacred. Michael turned off the equipment slowly. When he turned to Steph, there were tears in his eyes, too. The myth had become a man. I chose you, Michael said simply. Of all the players who came after, I chose to show you this. Because, Steph, you are already doing what that message asked for. You are already redefining greatness. You just needed someone to tell you that it is okay. That you do not need to be me. That being you is more than enough. Steph stood up, legs trembling. He walked to Michael, and the two embraced. Not as idol and fan, not as legend and successor, but as two human beings who finally understood the weight that both carried. Thank you, Steph whispered. Thank you for choosing me, for trusting me with this. No, Michael responded, pulling away and placing hands on Steph's shoulders. Thank you for giving me hope that the game I love will continue evolving in the hands of someone who understands that basketball is important. But it is not everything. They sat down, again. For the first time since he entered that house, Steph felt he could breathe completely. But there was something in Michael's expression, something saying that was not all. There is more, is there not? Steph asked. Michael nodded slowly. There is. Much more. Michael stood up and went to a bookshelf on the other side of the room. He moved some volumes about basketball history, revealing a small safe built into the wall. He typed in a code. The safe opened with a soft click. From inside, he removed a cherry wood box. Simple, but clearly old and well cared for. Edges worn by time and frequent touch. Michael held the box for a moment, as if weighing not only physical content, but decades of memories and regrets. When I recorded that video in 2003, Michael began, sitting back down, I started doing something else. Something nobody knows, not even my family. He placed the box on the table between them. Steph looked with a mixture of curiosity and reverence. I started writing letters, Michael said softly. Letters to players I saw entering the league. Young talents I knew would face the same thing I faced. Pressure, comparisons, suffocating weight of impossible expectations. He opened the box. Inside there were dozens of cream-colored high-quality paper envelopes, all sealed with red wax, all with names written by hand in careful and elegant calligraphy. LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, Dwayne Wade, Kevin Durant, Kawhi Leonard, and you. Michael pulled out an envelope that had Steph Wardell Curry II written on the front. All these letters I wrote, sealed, and never sent. Why did you never send them? Steph asked, voice almost a whisper. Michael sighed deeply. Pride, fear, the image I built. The Michael Jordan that the world knew could not admit vulnerability, could not say, I regret some choices, could not show that behind the myth there was just a man, an imperfect man who made mistakes. He handed the envelope to Steph. But you deserve to read, because this letter, I wrote it in April 2016, the day after that game where you hit 12 three-point shots against Oklahoma City, 46 points, and I realized something that day. What? Steph asked, holding the envelope as if it were crystal. I realized that you were not trying to be me. You were destroying the game in your own way, with your own weapon, your own style. You were literally changing how basketball would be played from then on. And for the first time in decades, I felt that maybe basketball was in better hands than mine. Steph opened the envelope with trembling hands, carefully breaking the wax seal. Inside, there were several pages handwritten on letterhead paper. Michael's handwriting was surprisingly delicate, almost artistic. Read it out loud. Please, Michael asked. I need to hear these words being said. I need to hear the truth I kept for so long finally gaining a voice. Steph nodded, clearing his throat. Voice came out choked, but he continued, holding the pages carefully. Steph, I watched you play last night. 46 points, 12 three-point shots, and each one was impossible 15 years ago. You are literally expanding the possible in basketball. Children now dream of shooting from the logo because you made it real. But that is not what impresses me most. Steph paused, looking at Michael, who had his eyes closed, listening. What impresses me is that after the game, I saw you on social media, photos of your family in the stands, your daughter Riley jumping with joy, your wife Isha celebrating, and there was something in your expression in those photos, genuine joy that I rarely felt. You were sharing that moment with them. You were present. Steph's voice failed. He needed to pause, breathing deeply. And I thought, I never did that. Not that way. My children were in the stands many times, but I was so consumed by competition, so lost in the need to dominate, that I did not share the moments. I possessed them, but I did not share them. And if I could go back in time, if I could trade some of those titles for moments like that, I would trade without blinking. Michael opened his eyes. Tears flowed freely. No attempt to hide them. You are proving something I never managed to prove, Steph continued, his own voice failing. That it is possible to be great and human at the same time. that you do not need to sacrifice your soul to win trophies. That being a good father, good husband, good person, that does not make you less competitive. In fact, maybe it makes you more complete. He turned the page, hands trembling visibly. I have 6 rings, Steph. 6 finals MVPs. 5 regular season MVPs. A legacy that people say is unmatched. And some days, when I am alone in this huge house, I would give all of them to have been the kind of father you are being, to have been the kind of human being you are. Because in the end, nobody remembers how relentless I was in practice. They remember that I was not there in the moments that mattered. And that is the truth that hurts more than any defeat ever hurt. Dense silence, loaded with pure emotion. Steph read the last lines, tears falling freely. Keep being you, Steph. Keep proving that there is a better way. Keep showing that greatness does not require destruction of your humanity. And when they say you are not Michael Jordan, be grateful. Because being Steph Curry, exactly as you are, is something much more important than being a second version of me could ever be. You are redefining greatness, and I envy you for that. With admiration, respect, and for the first time in my life, with genuine envy of what you have and who you are. Michael Jeffrey Jordan, April 13th, 2016. Steph carefully folded the letter and placed it back in the envelope. He did not trust his voice at that moment. There is more, Michael said. His own voice choked, taking the box again. All these letters, all these truths I kept, say the same thing in different ways. That I built a legacy that crushes. That I created a standard that destroys. And that my biggest regret is not games I lost or titles I did not win. It is the kind of man I had to become to win the titles I won. He spread some envelopes on the table, known names from the basketball world, each with a date carefully noted. Kobe tried to be me, and he destroyed himself, trying. He literally trained until his body could not take it. He died still trying to prove he was great enough. Michael's voice broke when mentioning Kobe, who passed away in 2020. LeBron spent more than 15 years being compared to me, hearing that he would never be good enough, no matter how many titles he won. How many talents were diminished or destroyed because they tried to reach something that not even I reached: inner peace. Steph finally found his voice. Michael, you inspired millions, including me. You changed the sport forever. Generations of children dreamed of playing basketball because of you. I know, Michael responded, wiping tears, and I am deeply grateful. But Steph, inspiration without humanity becomes obsession. Admiration without balance becomes self-destruction. And I am tired of being just the myth. Tired of being the impossible ruler. Tired of being the reason why talented men sacrifice families, mental health, lives, trying to be something that not even I enjoyed being. He leaned forward, hands joined, elbows on knees. For the first time, Steph saw not the greatest player of all time, but a 62-year-old man carrying decades of regret. That is why I called you here. That is why I chose you specifically. Because you have a platform, you have a voice, you have the respect of the new generation, and you can do something I never could. What? Steph asked, also leaning forward. Redefine what it means to be the best. Show the next generation that greatness does not require self-destruction, that you can have titles and have family, that you can be competitive and be kind, that you can change the game and still be yourself. that you can be remembered not just for records broken, but for lives touched, for humanity preserved, for love shared. Michael took his own letter from the box. This one had no player's name. It just said, "For Michael, April 17th, 2003. On the front, written in the same careful handwriting. "I wrote this on my last day as a professional player with the Wizards," he said, looking at the envelope without opening it, as if he had it memorized. "I had just turned 40, 3 days before officially announcing retirement. It is a list of everything I wish I had done differently, not on the courts, but off them, as a father, as a husband, as a son, as a friend, as a complete human being." He offered the envelope to Steph. "I want you to read it, not now, but when you feel the weight getting too heavy, when the comparisons get too loud, when you start thinking you need to sacrifice humanity to be great, when you are considering missing your son's birthday for one more practice, when you are thinking about yelling at a teammate because he is not at your level. Open it and read. And remember that the man considered the greatest of all time wished he had been a little less great and a little more human." Steph took the envelope with reverence, holding it as if it were the most precious thing in the world. He knew he was holding something rare, not just paper and ink, but raw truth, pure vulnerability, the open heart of a myth who finally had the courage to become a man. "I do not know what to say," Steph admitted, voice failing. "How do I thank you for this? How do I honor this trust?" Michael smiled. Tired smile, but genuine, that lit up his face. "You honor it by being exactly who you are. You honor it by continuing to prove there is a better way. You honor it by being present when your son scores his first point. You honor it by choosing family dinner instead of 2 more hours of practice. You honor it by laughing with teammates instead of destroying them psychologically. And Steph, when your career is over, when you look back, I hope you do not have a box full of unsent letters, full of unexpressed regrets. I hope you have vivid memories of basketball games in the backyard with your children, of noisy and joyful dinners, of hugs given and love received, of simple moments that, in the end, are worth infinitely more than any gold trophy." Michael went to another part of the room. He opened a special climate-controlled cabinet and removed something wrapped in black velvet fabric. He returned and placed it on the table with reverent care. "One last thing," he said, carefully unwrapping. "I want you to have this, not because you need it, but because I want you to remember." It was a pair of sneakers, but not just any pair. Steph immediately recognized them from historical photos. They were the Nike Airship, Michael Jordan's first professional shoes. The ones he wore in his first official NBA game on October 26, 1984, against the Washington Bullets. Faded, worn, real, with sweat stains, marks from the court, living history impregnated in every fiber. "Michael, I cannot," Steph began, hands trembling as he touched the shoe. "You can, and you will," Michael said firmly, but with gentleness. "Because these shoes represent the beginning. October 26, 1984. I was 21 years old. I was terrified, insecure. I was not yet the myth, not yet the legend, not yet the prison. I was just Michael, a kid from North Carolina, with a dream and many doubts, and I want you to have them as a reminder." "Reminder of what?" Steph asked, holding one of the shoes with reverence. "That every myth began as a human being. That greatness begins with humanity, not despite it. That the greatest legacy we can leave is not records we broke, not comparisons we won, but lives we touched, people we loved, humanity we preserved while we were still just ourselves. Wear them. Do not wear them. Keep them. Donate them to a museum. It does not matter. What matters is that you understand the message they carry. What message? That you are free. Free from comparisons. Free from my legacy. Free from the weight of being the next Jordan. And Steph? Michael placed his hands on Steph's shoulders, looking directly into his eyes. I give you explicit permission to be different from me. To be better than me in ways that matter more. To be more balanced than me. To be more present than me. To be more human than me. You have my blessing, my encouragement, and my genuine envy. Do what I did not do. Be who I was not. And when you look back 20 years from now, I hope you have stories of love and presence, not just stories of victories and domination. They embraced again. And this time, there was no more tension, no more crushing weight of expectations, no idol and fan, legend and successor. Just two men who found, in each other, the missing piece in their own journeys. One found validation that his different path was right. The other found hope that his legacy could be redeemed through another's choices. When Steph finally left Michael Jordan's house, the sun had already completely set over Chicago. Stars were beginning to appear in the dark sky. It was Thursday night. He carried the historic shoes in a special bag, the letters carefully stored in his backpack, and something much more precious and intangible. Clarity, purpose, freedom, and for the first time in years, genuine inner peace. He got in the car. The driver asked if everything was okay, noticing red eyes. Steph just nodded, unable to form words. How do you explain that you just had the most important conversation of your life? How do you describe the feeling of being truly seen, deeply understood, by someone you idolized for 3 decades? In the back seat, Steph picked up his phone. He thought about calling Isha immediately. But no. Some things needed to be processed in silence first. Some truths needed to be digested, felt, integrated, before they could be shared with words. He looked out the window as the car pulled away from the property. He saw Michael at the door, waving. Not the myth. Just a 62-year-old man who had just freed himself from a prison he himself built, and who, by freeing himself, had freed another. Steph waved back, and then, in the silence of the car, he opened the envelope that Michael had given him. For Michael, April 17, 2003, was written. He knew Michael had given him permission to read it. Inside, a single handwritten page, and at the top, a phrase that Steph knew he would carry for the rest of his life. Greatness without humanity is just empty success. And, in the end, when lights go out and applause ceases, nobody remembers your trophies or statistics. They remember who you were when nobody was watching. They remember if you were there. And I was not. Steph closed his eyes, holding the letter against his chest. And for the first time, in a very, very long time, he breathed completely, deeply, freely. The return flight to San Francisco the following morning was peaceful. Steph spent most of it looking out the window, seeing the country unfold below, thinking, processing, integrating, feeling old weight being replaced by something new. Not absence of weight. Purpose also has weight. But different weight. Chosen weight. Meaningful weight. When he finally arrived home in Atherton, it was late Friday afternoon. The house was in soft silence. Isha and the children had not yet returned. He left his suitcase at the entrance, carefully placed Jordan's shoes in his office, stored the letters in his personal safe, and went to his children's rooms. First, Riley's room, now a teenager. Photo of her as a little girl on the nightstand. Steph picked up the photo and smiled. He remembered that moment Michael mentioned in the letter, Riley jumping with joy in the stands. He had been present. He had chosen to be present. Then he went to Ryan's room, drawings scattered on the walls, colorful dreams of a child. Then to Cannon's room, with a basketball beside the bed. Steph stood at the door, observing the empty but life-filled room. His son slept with a basketball beside him, exactly as Steph did at his age. How life repeats itself. How cycles continue. But this time it would be different. Steph would not teach Cannon to be like him, or like Michael Jordan, or like anyone else. He would teach Cannon to discover who Cannon really is, and then be that with all the courage he had. And if Cannon decided he did not want to play professional basketball, that he wanted to be a chef, or teacher, or artist, Steph would be the first to applaud. He finally went to his own room. He sat on the bed and called Isha. "You took your time," she answered. "I was worried. How was it?" "It was—" Steph paused, searching for the right words. "Transformative. Isha," Michael Jordan cried in front of me. He talked about regrets, about not being present, about envying the way I balance basketball and family. Michael Jordan envied me. There was a pause. "What a gift he gave you." "He freed me," Steph said simply. "Freed me from something I did not even know was holding me back. Freed me from himself, from the myth, from the comparison, from everything. And he gave me explicit permission to be me, to be different, to be better in ways that matter more." "Welcome back," Isha said softly. "Welcome home. Not just to this house, but to yourself." The following morning, Steph woke up and went to train. But it was different now. He was not training to prove something. He was not training to reach a ghost. He was training because he loved the game. Because he loved feeling his body in motion. Because he loved the challenge of continuous improvement. But when the alarm went off, marking the end of training, he stopped. He did not stay just 15 more minutes. He did not ignore his body asking for rest. He stopped, because he had a family lunch planned. Weeks passed. The new season was approaching. Training camp, media day, all the usual expectations and speculations. But something was different with Steph Curry, and everyone noticed, although few could articulate exactly what. "You seem different, man," Draymond Green said during practice. "More relaxed. More you." Steph smiled. "I think I finally figured out who I really am." During the season opening press conference, a reporter asked the inevitable question. "Steph, going into another season, do you still feel pressure to add more titles, to solidify your legacy, especially in comparisons with Jordan and LeBron?" The room fell silent, cameras focusing, everyone waiting for the usual diplomatic answer. Steph paused, thought, and then responded with new honesty. "You know, that question would have tormented me a few months ago, but I had an important conversation recently, with someone who understands the weight of these comparisons better than anyone. And I learned something fundamental." He leaned forward, speaking directly to the cameras, but also to every kid watching who was struggling to be authentic. "My goal is no longer to be measured against legends of the past. My goal is to play basketball with joy, lead my team with love, and at the end of each day, be a present father and husband. If that results in more titles, incredible. If not, I will still look back without regrets. Because I finally understood. Greatness is not about how many trophies you accumulate. It is about how completely you live, how authentically you love, how present you are in the moments that really matter. There was a moment of stunned silence. Then a veteran reporter asked, "That is a significant change in philosophy. What changed specifically?" Steph smiled, enigmatic, knowing. Let us just say I received wisdom from someone who walked the path before me, someone who understands the real cost of greatness. And he gave me permission to do something different, something better, something more human. He did not say more about it. But somewhere in Highland Park, Chicago, watching the interview on TV, Michael Jordan smiled proudly and picked up his phone. A simple message appeared on Steph's phone minutes later. "You understood it perfectly. Now fly. Not like I flew, but like only you can fly. Proud of you. MJ." That afternoon, Steph went to a public court in San Francisco. Boys were playing. Chaotic energy, immense dreams, pure love for the game. One of them recognized him. "It's Steph Curry." Everyone stopped, eyes wide. "Can I play with you?" Steph asked, smiling. What followed was magical in its simplicity. 30 minutes of honest basketball. No cameras, no pressure, no comparisons, just the game in its purest form. Joy of movement, celebration of skill, shared fun. Steph shot some impossible three-pointers, drawing screams. But he also intentionally missed several, laughing loudly at himself. He made creative passes. He encouraged each boy by name. He celebrated effusively when anyone scored. When they took a break, a thin boy gathered courage. "Mr. Curry, everyone talks. Do you think one day you will be as good as Michael Jordan was?" Before Chicago, before Highland Park, before the conversation that changed everything, that question would have hurt like a needle to the heart. But now, Steph smiled, genuine, free, luminous. "You know, bro, I sincerely hope not." The boys looked confused. "Michael Jordan was incredible," Steph continued, voice calm and clear. "One of the greatest of all time, without a doubt. He changed the game forever. But he played his game, his way, in his time, with his sacrifices. And I am playing my game, my way, in my time, with my own choices. And the real magic, the true magic of basketball in life, is not in being equal to someone else, no matter how great they were. The magic is in being completely, courageously, authentically you." He looked at each boy, making real eye contact. "When you play, who do you try to imitate?" "Michael Jordan," one shouted. "LeBron," said another. "You," said a third, pointing. Steph shook his head gently but firmly. "Wrong. All wrong. When you play, when you live, you need to try to be yourselves, the truest, most courageous, most authentic version of you. Because the world does not need another Michael Jordan, or another Steph Curry, or another LeBron. We already exist. The world needs the first you, the only you, the you that only you can be." A smaller boy, who had remained quiet, asked with a small but brave voice, "But Mr. Curry, what if we are not good enough being just ourselves? What if who I am is not special?" Steph felt a strong tightness in his chest. That question. How many times had he asked himself the same question over 16 years? He knelt on the court to be at the boy's height. "Let me tell you a secret that took me a very long time to learn. 16 years playing professionally, actually. I spent most of my career thinking I was not good enough being myself. I tried to be taller. Impossible. I tried to be stronger. Never enough. I tried to be more someone else. Someone that people already respected. The boy stared at Steph. I only started to really, truly shine when I stopped trying to be someone I was not and started radically embracing who I am. Too short for basketball? Okay, I will shoot from farther away. Not as strong? Okay, I will be faster and more creative. Cannot dominate physically? Okay, I will completely change the game with the three-point shot. He gently squeezed the boy's shoulder. You may not be the tallest. You may not be the strongest. You may not be the fastest. But you have something that absolutely nobody else on the entire planet has. You have you, your unique perspective, your unique creativity, your unique heart. And that is not just special. That is your superpower. Your job is not to be like someone else. Your job is to discover who you are and be that with all the courage you have. The boy's eyes filled with tears, but he smiled. Smile of relief, of understanding, of something being liberated. Steph stood up, looked at everyone one last time. Play with passion. Play with joy. Play as yourselves. Be curious about who you are, not about who you think you should be. And when someone tries to compare you to someone else, anyone, smile. Because being compared means you are special enough to be noticed. But being brave enough to be yourself, authentically, that means you are free. And freedom is worth more than any trophy. He waved, jumped the fence, and went back to his car. As they drove away, he looked in the rearview mirror. The boys had gone back to playing, but something was visibly different. They played with more freedom now, less worried about imitating perfect moves, more focused on just being themselves. That night, at home, Steph sat in his office. He opened his laptop. He had something he needed to do, something that had been gestating since he left Chicago. He opened a blank document and began to write. Not a public statement, not a social media post, but a letter. To himself. To the future. Words flowed naturally, honestly. Dear future Steph, if you are reading this, years have passed. Your playing career is probably over. And I hope, no, I pray, that when you look back, you do not count successes only in rings or trophies or broken records. I hope you count them in laughter shared with Riley, Ryan, and Cannon. In noisy and long family dinners where nobody looked at their phone. In moments when you chose to be present instead of being perfect. In school games you watched instead of extra practices. In I love you, said out loud. In hugs given without rush. I hope you do not have a box of unsent letters like Michael had. I hope you said the difficult words when they needed to be said. I hope you apologized when you were wrong. I hope you were vulnerable when you needed to be. I hope you said I love you to Isha more times than you scored points in your entire career. I hope you hugged your children more times than you defeated opponents. And if someone one day asks you if you were as good as Michael Jordan, I hope you smile with peace in your heart and say, I was better at something more important. I was better at being human. I was better at being present. I was better at loving. I was authentically myself. I hope your children know you not as a distant legend, but as a present father. I hope Isha looks back and sees a partner who repeatedly chose her. I hope your teammates remember not just the titles, but your kindness. And I hope, above all, that when you close your eyes for the last time in this life, you do not regret what you sacrificed for greatness, that you feel at peace with who you were when nobody was watching. Michael gave me a gift in Chicago. He freed me. And now I am freeing myself for the future. I am choosing a different path, a more human path. This is my commitment, my promise, to myself, to my family, to everyone who will come after. Do not be Jordan. Be Curry. Completely, courageously, freely, with hope and determination. Steph Wardell Curry II. When I was still learning to be free. He saved the document, closed the laptop, and for the first time in 16 professional years, Steph Curry felt he was no longer chasing something. He was no longer trying to reach a ghost. He was no longer carrying the weight of impossible comparisons. He was simply being, completely, courageously, freely being Steph Curry. And that, he finally understood, was more than enough. It was everything. He picked up his phone and sent one last message to Michael that night. Thank you for giving me not just permission, but encouragement to be me. You changed my life, changed my legacy, changed what greatness means to me, and I will pass this forward to the next generation. I promise, with eternal gratitude. The response came quickly. You do not need to thank me, Steph. You gave me something I thought I had lost forever. Hope that my legacy can be more than a prison. It can be liberation. Thank you for having the courage to be you. Now go and show the world that greatness and humanity are not mutually exclusive. Fly free, my friend. Basketball is in better hands than mine ever were. Steph placed the phone on the table. He looked out the window at the Bay Area night sky. Stars shone up there, each one unique, each one following its own trajectory. He smiled, and he knew, with absolute certainty, that something fundamental had changed that Thursday in Chicago. He was no longer the player trying to be Michael Jordan. He was Steph Curry, completely, finally, freely. And that was not just enough. It was extraordinary.